joining in, and we are going to get started. All right. Joining me today is John Kiriakou. John worked for the CIA from 1990 to 2004, first as an analyst and later as a counterterrorism operations officer overseas in Bahrain, Athens, and Pakistan, where he was the CIA's chief of counterterrorist operations. He led a series of military raids on Qaeda safe houses in Pakistan, capturing dozens of suspects, including the 2002 raid that captured Abu Zaheda, then thought to be the third-ranking member of Qaeda. He was also the first CIA officer to publicly confirm that the CIA waterboarded prisoners and that such an action was torture. He also confirmed that torture was an official U.S. government policy rather than wrongdoing by a few rogue agents. He became the sixth whistleblower indicted under the Espionage Act by the Obama administration and was sent to prison for 2.5 years. Welcome, John. Thank you so much for joining us today. It's an absolute honor for us to have you and host you.
Thank you. The pleasure's all mine. I'm very happy to be here. And thanks, everybody, for the welcomes and the very nice comments.
TikTok is animated. Thank you, T-Rex. That's a nice welcome for you. It's we got the lion in the house. All right. I wanted to start off with a few things. I mean, there's so much that I would love to talk about and discuss, but we have an hour and we're going to try to get through as much as we can. But recently the UN came out with a report that there is widespread torture and sexual abuse of Palestinians that's been going on for years. Similar to the torture programs that you blew the whistle on, that the United States of America was involved in after 9/11. There was also a piece that was released by Nicholas Kristof speaking about the systematic rape that Palestinians experienced that set off Bibi Netanyahu and the Israeli government to sue the New York Times. What's your thoughts on all of this and the parallels between the American dynamic and Israeli dynamic?
Well, these reports are not new. They're not just post October 7th. Israeli torture of Palestinian prisoners has been taking place for decades. I spoke recently with an American doctor who was in Gaza treating Palestinians who had just been released from prison. And they told some of the most horrible stories. They said, for example, they're not allowed to speak in prison. You get a beating by the guards if you speak. They're not allowed to walk. They have to crawl everywhere they go. If you're in your cell and it's time to eat, you have to crawl on your hands and knees like an animal to get to the whatever they call the chow hall, the cafeteria. It's not a cafeteria. I'm sure it's just a hole. But and then we saw the Nicholas Kristof piece in the New York Times, which the Israelis just lost their minds over, saying that there was evidence of the use of dogs to anally rape prisoners. The thing is here that the Israelis know that they don't have to answer to anybody. They don't care what the international community thinks. They only care what the United States thinks. And the United States isn't going to say anything to them. And so there's literally no one out there to stop them. This kind of abuse and torture is going to continue. Now, you asked about a comparison between the U.S. and the Israeli programs. Honestly, as bad as the American program was, and I'm very proud to have blown the whistle on it, I think the Israeli torture system is worse. Many of you have seen this Netflix series, Fauda, right? And Fauda has been criticized. I think it's a fantastic show. If you want to get an idea of the dynamic that's going on, mostly in the West Bank. But Fauda has been criticized for being so incredibly violent. The truth is, it's actually not as violent as it is in real life. And so I think this is something that everybody should understand. Everybody should know the incredible degree of violence that the Israelis are using against Palestinians.
And you said that, they only care about the United States of America, and the United States of America won't do anything, right? No. But we're told that Israel is the greatest ally of the United States, and Israel is friends of the United States. That kind of pushes me into, what do you know of active Israeli Mossad agents in the United States, and how much access does Israel have to U.S. intelligence and defense information?
Well, I'll preface the answer by saying that my information is very dated. So I joined the CIA 36 and a half years ago. It was a long time. And I can tell you that 36 and a half years ago, the CIA's director of security told all of us on our very first day at CIA headquarters, our very first day on the job, that the Israelis have two representatives in Washington, Mossad and Shin Bet, one officer each. And they work at the Israeli embassy here in Washington. But 36 and a half years ago, the Israelis also had 187 undeclared intelligence officers spread out all across the United States, mostly trying to steal defense secrets from defense contractors. Now, I can only imagine 36 and a half years later what the situation on the ground is, especially electronically, because it's a different planet that we live on now than what it was in January of 1990. I can only imagine.
Much different. It's worse.
It's way, way worse. I can only imagine what effects in the United States Israel's Pegasus software is having, for example, where they can intercept anything they want. And let me give you one very personal example. I have a very close friend who was demonstrating at the Israeli embassy here in Washington. She was on the corner where the embassy sits. It's directly across the street from the Chinese embassy. And it's funny, the Chinese diplomats stand at the window and they go like this to the protesters. Anyway, she was standing on the corner and a U-Haul truck began driving up the street and going directly toward her. She realized that the truck was going to hit her, and so she jumped out of the way. She hurt herself. The truck came up onto the sidewalk. Two men jumped out and they ran inside the Israeli embassy. There was a Washington, D.C. policeman sitting in a car across the street, and he had seen the whole thing. And so he came out and he said, "Are you all right?" She said, "I think so, but I hurt my ankle." He said, "Do you want to file a police report? We can't really do anything because they have diplomatic immunity, but at least it would be on the record." All the Palestinians that were demonstrating there were shouting, "No, don't file a police report." And she said, "Yes, I want to file the police report." So she files the police report. The next day, she gets an email from the State Department. And when she saw it pop up in her inbox, she said, "Oh, that's fast. They're taking some action." The email was to tell her that her global entry had been canceled. She had had global entry since they created global entry. It had been canceled. And then later in the day, her iPhone just stopped working. I took her to the Apple store and they examined it. They said, "We have to give it to somebody at the Genius Bar." They give it to somebody at the Genius Bar and he said, "Ma'am, I'm sorry. I've never seen anything like this before." He said, "Something has clearly infected this phone."
Wow.
And it's dead. She had to buy a new phone. She had to get a new number. But this is what the Israelis do. And what was her crime? She was standing on a street corner in support of Palestine.
And we're seeing now, that is just wild to see that where we are headed to. And, with this new 2027 NDAA, specifically
Very
Section
dangerous.
224, yes, which is titled the United States Israeli Defense Technology Cooperation Initiative, which it now combines and merges the U.S. military and the Israeli military. What more can we give Israel? In terms of intelligence, what more can they have access to under this new Section 224 that is now proposed to plan or to pass?
That's a great question and a very important question. And I'm going to answer it by starting off with another little anecdote. Sorry. When we began developing the F-35 fighter jet, the Israelis came to us and they said, "We want the first F-35s. Got to have the first F-35s." We said, "Fine. We'll give you the first F-35s. It's going to be called the F-35I, I for Israel." And what we're going to do is slightly degrade the avionics, just so that in case, God forbid, one is shot down, the Russians or the Chinese don't take it and copy the avionics. They said, "No, we want exactly the same F-35 that you guys have." So in the meantime, the Emiratis came to us and they said, "Hey, we'd like this new F-35. We said, "Fine. We're going to give you the F-35. We're going to call it the F-35E for Emirates. And we're going to slightly degrade the avionics. So God forbid if it's shot down, the Russians or the Chinese don't get it. The Emiratis said, fine, we'll take it. The Israelis set out to steal whatever the downgrade was in the avionics so that once we gave them the F-35I, they could automatically upgrade it. Okay? Well, now, I'm talking 35 years ago. Now, they don't need to do that anymore. They probably will continue to spy on us and to steal our secrets, but they don't need to because we give them practically everything. We work hand in glove with them, especially electronics and on signals intelligence. And now with the proposed National Defense Authorization Act of 2027, we're going to so fully integrate technology between the United States and Israel that we will literally be sitting next to each other at the Pentagon, NSA, CIA, and everywhere else that matters. We've essentially given up our sovereignty to Israel.
So it seems that we've taken Israeli priorities and made them our own. And we know that Israel thrives on chaos. And, we've now seen Israeli officials say that after Iran, Turkey will be next. Will the United States be dragged into this? And, how do you see this current war ending that we're in? I mean, we see there's no way out, it seems like. Because this is what Israel wants. They have an objective. They want to continue, with the attacks on Beirut. Do you see any way out for the United States of America?
No, I don't. And that's why I think that the way this is going to end for us, not for the people of the region, but for us, is we're going to wake up one day to a Donald Trump Truth Social posting saying, "Good news, everybody. We won. I'm bringing everybody home. The war's over. We win. USA, USA." And that's going to be the end of it. Of course, it's not going to be the end of it because Iran, putting aside Gaza, the West Bank, and Lebanon, Iran is 3.8 times the size of Iraq. Iran is the size of Western Europe, the whole of Western Europe. Iran has a forbidding topography, very high mountains. It's impossible to attack with any success. They've been an ongoing culture for 5,000 years plus. What are we going to do? We would need 1 million troops to invade and occupy Iran. It's just simply not going to happen. And from my own experience in the Iraq War, was such that in Washington, policymakers genuinely convinced themselves that we're going to be greeted as liberators. Somebody commented as soon as I got on, Taz, why do you keep lying about Reza Pahlavi? Reza Pahlavi is a clown. Reza Pahlavi is not going to be the leader of Iran. He doesn't want to go back to Iran because he's afraid. I've said many times, and I'll say it again, Reza Pahlavi would not survive the walk from the plane to the terminal if he were to go back to Iran. Yep. Besides that, his wife is cheating on him with her French personal trainer. Is that really what the reflection of Iranian culture that the Iranian people are going to want? No, those decisions are being made in Jerusalem and in Washington. Yes. Only the Israelis and the American government want Reza Clown Pahlavi to be the new Shah of Iran. That's not going to happen. This 100%. Is not a winnable war for either the United States or for Israel, and they're going to have to stop.
Now, how will they stop? Because we saw Jonathan Pollard, who is, Traitor. I cannot even believe the words that he's been saying. But for anybody who doesn't know, he was a U.S. spy for Israel and was charged with espionage and treason, served the full 30 years, and is now running for Knesset in Israel. He was welcomed with open arms, given an Israeli citizenship. Bibi Netanyahu
kissed the ground when he got off the plane.
Yeah, Bibi Netanyahu begged the previous presidents to pardon him. And so he went on and started talking about nuking Iran.
Yes.
And he also said a bunch of stuff about, how Israel threatened possibly to, America with a nuke. Do you see a nuke actually happening in this war? Can Israel, or do you think America or Israel could use a tactical nuke to get out of this? Like, what's your thoughts on this? I mean, they're saying it out loud now. What do you, how do you feel about this possibly happening?
I have a friend who is one of the world's leading experts on the history of nuclear weapons. He even founded something called the Nuclear Studies Center at American University, and he's a senior professor of modern American history. And he believes that Donald Trump is actually considering using a tactical nuclear weapon. He said that his sources have told him that Trump said that nuclear weapons are the final taboo, and he wants to use one so that future presidents would feel free to use them also. Now, that is insane. I'm not sure that it's true, and I think that it would be devastating for the entire world if that barrier were to be broken again. Remember, the United States is the only country on earth to use a nuclear weapon, and we did it twice. So I think that this is wrong-headed from every aspect. It's just wrong, wrong, wrong. Now, we also know, because Barack Obama leaked this several weeks ago, that Netanyahu came to him in his first term, 2009 to 2013, and said, if you don't attack Iran, we're going to use a nuclear weapon. And Obama said, go ahead, do it. We're not going to stop you. It was a bluff, of course, and Obama called the bluff. But when Netanyahu went to Trump and said, attack Iran or we're going to use a nuclear weapon, Trump said, oh, I better attack Iran. We don't want the Israelis to use a nuclear weapon. And so we attacked. And this is another thing, is that Netanyahu and these pro-Clown Pahlavi Iranian Americans convinced Trump that the Iranian government was a house of cards, and that as soon as the first missiles were fired, the entire government would just collapse. And anybody who pays any attention at all to Iran knew that that wasn't true. And the Americans and the Israelis ended up taking out virtually the entire Iranian leadership. They took out Ayatollah Khamenei. They took out the entire military leadership and almost all of the nuclear scientists, and literally nothing changed. Nothing. And so now we have to figure out a way to get out of this.
Wow, this is, Americans, again, this is what I keep saying, is that what happened to America first? It seems like Israel first is where America is headed and where America has been for quite some time. But before I had just a few more questions. Do you feel that Jeffrey Epstein was part of the US government or a foreign government that they used for blackmailing people?
I believe he was an Israeli access agent. And I've been very clear about that. A lot of people disagree with me. And with the release of the most recent tranche of documents, it turned out to be a little bit more than that. It wasn't just that he had been volunteering intelligence to the Israelis. He approached the CIA, the FBI, the British MI5 and MI6, the Germans, and he tried repeatedly to get a meeting with Vladimir Putin, and the Russians would not agree to a one-on-one meeting. So I've slightly changed my assessment. I've been saying that he was an Israeli access agent. I think that that's true, but I think he was also what we call an intelligence broker, willing to sell intelligence to anybody willing to pay him for it.
Wow. And we've seen the files released. There's many that haven't been released, of course, and then also the JFK assassination files. There's about 10,000 of them that weren't released. And do you feel like we'll ever see those that connect Israeli intelligence to the killing and the assassination of JFK?
I hate to say that I don't think we're going to see those documents. The word out there in Washington is that the remaining 10,000, 15,000 pages of documents indict the Israelis or point to the Israelis, maybe not indict them, point to the Israelis having been involved in the assassination of John Kennedy. We don't know. And I think we'll never know because I don't think those documents will ever be released.
And how does America, how does America disengage? I mean, how we have Lindsey Graham saying, if you want to run for president in 2028 and you don't support Israel, that I don't think you'll win. How do we get American sovereignty back and break the chokehold of the Israeli lobby that they have on the U.S. government? I mean, how do we become free again?
I think Lindsey Graham is wrong. He's clearly not looking at the polls. It's the Israelis that have made Americans turn away from Israel. It's Israeli actions in Gaza and the West Bank, in Iran, in Lebanon, in Syria, even in Doha, where they feel free to just bomb one of America's closest allies. So I don't think that. I'm not sure, at least in the near term, the medium term, that there's any going back from this. Lindsey Graham's not looking at the polls, showing that now as many as 80% of Democrats say they're pro-Palestine in this conflict, and the Republicans are approaching 50%. So I don't think you have to get on your knees in front of Israel if you want to be taken seriously as a presidential candidate here. Lindsey Graham and Ted Cruz will, and Tom Cotton and a handful of others, but the country's changing.
And then we got to do what we can for everybody that is listening. We saw Israel did purchase Kentucky, one of the largest primaries in history.
The most expensive in American
history. The most
history.
Expensive, yep. And so we need to keep on pushing. We saw Adam Hamawi did win yesterday in New Jersey, District 12, I believe. And then we did see that Congress did approve, I think, the bill for the war yesterday to limit Trump's abilities. So we got to keep on pushing. But you do have hope that we can get our country back.
I do, actually. I do. I think public opinion is changing, that this wanton disrespect of human rights and civil liberties is just wrong. And you have major voices like Tucker Carlson, for example, speaking truth to people, and people are taking it in. I can't tell you how many friends I have who said, I can't believe that I find myself agreeing with people like Tucker Carlson and Marjorie Taylor Greene. These are friends on the left. But, if they're speaking truth, they're speaking truth, and they're changing public opinion.
Thank you. Thank you so much, John. I appreciate all of your, answers to my questions. I'm going to open it to some of the panel here as well that do have questions, and I'll also kind of chime in as well throughout the conversation. I'll go to my co-host, Linda. Go ahead, Linda.
Hi, John. How are you?
Hi, doing well. How are you?
Good, thank you. My question is as follows. With confirmed intelligence activity embedded inside Gaza's humanitarian system, how does this blend of aid distribution and covert surveillance reflect the CIA's traditional methods in conflict zones where the U.S. isn't formally at war but has major strategic interests? And what historical precedents help contextualize this?
Wow, that's such a great question. Yeah, the CIA has been doing operations like this literally since it was founded. The CIA attempts to embed itself everywhere. Not everywhere. It's against the law, for example, for the CIA to be embedded in the Peace Corps, right? So you can't do that, and that's just to keep Peace Corps people safe from attack. But yeah, otherwise, you have to assume that the CIA is involved in every NGO overseas, every labor union. They're everywhere. The idea is to gather as much intelligence as possible and to send it back. It's something called the mosaic concept. So, a mosaic is a picture, a portrait, a scene made up of little tiles. So what you do is you just collect the little tiles and you send them into headquarters. And one at a time, the analysts put the tiles together so that eventually they can have an entire picture of what's going on. And that's what the CIA is doing overseas. Now, is it right? Is it moral? Is it ethical? Of course not. But we're trained at the CIA to break the laws of every country that we serve in, except, of course, the United States. And that's what they're going to continue to do.
Thank you, John.
Thank you, Linda.
Thank you. Thank you, Linda. All right, go ahead, Hussam.
Hi, John. It's nice
Hi,
to have
sir.
you. Just
Thank you, sir.
pleasure to meet you.
My pleasure.
I got a question, and I'm going to start with, so we have greater than 96% of Congress, the Senate, the current and recent administration members that have taken AIPAC money.
Yes.
When constituents talk to these people and are critical of Israel's actions, you see that most of them have a fanatical devotion to Israel, and they're basically dead in the eyes when you look at them. Mm-hmm. How they got to this mindset varies. It could be bribery, blackmail, threats. Who knows at this point?
Yeah.
And for us, it's very concerning that our politicians can't acknowledge that the atrocities that Israel commits, and they seem to have conflict of interest in regards to America's well-being. How was Israel able to infiltrate us on this level? And do you see that we could vote our way out of this to get a majority of politicians with America first mindset?
God, that's one of the most important questions I think that's being asked out there today. And it's very difficult. You know, Hussam, I've been accused over the course of many years of being overly optimistic, in some cases irrationally optimistic. I'm actually not at all optimistic about this. I was having this conversation last night with a group of friends. I have a friend who was Henry Kissinger's chief researcher, and we were talking about this. And he said that it happened incrementally, but it really took off during the Nixon administration. President Johnson was afraid of Israel and pro-Israel. And so he essentially let the Israelis get away with, well, literally with murder with the USS Liberty. And then when Nixon became president, he became the first president to guarantee Israel's security. No president before had guaranteed the security of Israel. And it was about that same time that AIPAC went from a small group that nobody ever heard of to this megalith in Washington. They've gotten now to the point with rich donors. The Adelsons come to mind immediately, and there were many, many, many others. They've gotten to this point where if you are not 100% pro-Israel in your voting record, they will primary you. Now, this bit them in New Jersey, where there was an incumbent congressman that voted with Israel 90% of the time, had always taken AIPAC money, and then drew a primary challenger that was willing to go 100% pro-Israel. And then there was a pro-Palestine challenger as well. Well, the pro-Israel two split the vote, and the pro-Palestine candidate won and became the nominee. So they're getting a little bit ahead of themselves. I mentioned earlier that the polls are showing a gigantic move in the direction of Palestine, which is great. But even though public opinion is changing, the Israelis are still pro-Israeli Americans are spending millions, tens of millions of dollars. And I'll give you another example. It's not just Congress. I got a call several months ago from a state senator in Texas. And he said, hey, I'm a big fan of yours. I followed your case and your whistleblowing, and I'm going to propose in the Texas State Senate a resolution to make a John Kiriakou Day. I said, oh my gosh, what a wonderful thing. Thank you so much for thinking of me. He said, yeah, we do about 150 of these a year. You get a certificate and the governor signs it and it has the big gold seal of the state of Texas. I said, great. He calls me 3 weeks later and he said, listen, that John Kiriakou Day, that's not going to happen. And I said, oh, what happened? What a shame. And he says, AIPAC objected. And I said, AIPAC is active in the Texas state legislature? And he said, AIPAC is active in all 50 state legislatures. And now they've started to spend money in local races like school board or mayor.
Wow. Oh,
yeah.
wow.
So there's a lot of money out there going into a lot of political races, and it's all to change public opinion to make it pro-Israel or else. Or else you're going to lose, or else you're not going to get your legislation passed.
Wow, I did not know it goes that deep into
Deep.
schools.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we know it's going into churches, which is
Mm-hmm.
why a lot of these people that you hear that we must support Israel so we can be blessed by God, or they, whatever,
Right. What a
we have
joke.
like Ted Cruz. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, I mean, it is part of the Hasbro and the propaganda and the influence, and it works. But to go into schools, that is concerning, and should
Yeah.
concern every single American out
Yes, it
there,
should.
that this is of influencing your children from a young age.
Yes.
Wow. Thank you, Hassan, for that question, and John for
Good
that
question.
follow-up answer. Thank you so much. Go ahead. We'll go to
Hello.
Hi.
I have a question about the dissolving of the Knesset because they're voting to dissolve it. And what I see is an even more extreme faction that would take
100%.
over.
Yes.
I would like to know what your thoughts are on that because I don't see a lot of people talking about the vote to dissolve, especially with Netanyahu's, the BB files coming out, people, it going viral, and people looking at all of the corruption that BB is involved in
Oh,
in
yeah.
Israel. So I was wondering what your thoughts are on the vote to dissolve.
See, this is an example of how sociopathic and narcissistic and selfish Bibi Netanyahu is. This isn't about the war. It's not about reflecting Israeli public opinion from today. It's about further delaying his prosecution on, what is it, something like 7 corruption charges, all felonies?
Yes.
If he's not prime minister, he's going to be in prison. And so he needs to try to remain prime minister as long as he possibly can. Well, everybody knows when a country's at war, its citizens rally around the leadership, right? You don't want to be seen as a traitor or weak on patriotism or whatever. Couple that with the fact that since the late 1980s, with this enormous influx of Russian and Ukrainian Jews to Israel, the entire Israeli electorate has moved farther to the right. And so the danger is, if the Knesset is dissolved, and I agree with you, I think it will be, the danger is that in the next election, we're going to see an even more extremely right-wing government with more Smotriches and Itamar Ben-Gavirs and more seats for these extremist parties, and again with Netanyahu as the prime minister. And then he just bought himself another 2, 3, 4 years.
That's kind of what I see happening.
Yeah, it's a shame.
that is, and we know the way Ben Gvir is, and John, people say it's the government and just the government, but we know that former Prime Minister Bennett said that an Israeli Jew is not complete without service in the IDF. So it goes beyond just the government. It's in the society.
That's
Thank
right.
you.
It's part of society. Yes.
100%. Thank you, Hot Mess. We'll go to Musa. Go ahead, Musa.
Thank you, Taz. I appreciate this opportunity. My question is about the NDAA. I pumped this question into AI and I already have an answer for it. So I guess this is somewhat of a loaded question. But the NDAA says that Israel will be allowed offices inside our Pentagon.
Yes.
Is this a breach of constitutional law? And if so, how?
Oh, that's a good question. The honest to God's truth from me is I don't know. Wow, I hadn't even thought of that. I have a dear friend, very close friend, I speak with him every single day, who was Ronald Reagan's deputy attorney general. He's one of the country's foremost constitutional scholars. I'm going to ask him that. You know what? Actually, that might be a way to attack this thing. If it could be deemed, if it could be deemed to be a constitutional violation, we could take to the courts. What did AI say? Did AI say it was a constitutional violation?
Absolutely did. It said that there were several constitutional laws being broken by this NDAA bill. Not only that they would be allowed offices within our Pentagon, but that we have no previous treaties. So imagine having no
Which is
previous
true.
experiences with a government doing business with you, going in full scale, allowing them full access to American military might via AI. Meaning, if an AI picks up a threat, it initiates American defense systems against this threat. Whether it's perceived to be an Israeli threat or an American threat does not matter. It will attack.
Oh, that's fascinating. That's an op-ed right there. Thank you for the idea. I think I might write that today.
But John, do you think that, you know, the law is real? I mean, it's not just a bunch of words. I mean, we know that it's actually illegal under the Symington and Glenn amendments
Yes.
to fund and have foreign assistance to and defense sales to anyone who's not does not have comprehensive IAEA safeguards in place,
Yeah.
which is Israel. But here we are, right? We're still
Right.
doing it. I mean, this is illegal under law. So do you actually believe that this could change anything? I mean, what does law really mean to the United States of America when it comes to Israel?
Nothing. The law means nothing. When you have members of Congress, listen, I'm up on Capitol Hill all the time. When you have members of Congress that have outside in the hall the American flag and the Israeli flag outside their offices, you know you're in trouble. Can you imagine going up to see your member of Congress and he's got the Russian flag outside his office or the Chinese flag? How is it acceptable to have the Israeli flag anywhere in Congress? How is it acceptable for members of Congress to make a political point by going onto the floor of the House wearing IDF uniforms? So no, the Israelis get some kind of special dispensation that just, it beggars, any logic at all. I just simply don't understand it. And then you have senators like John Fetterman who say, yeah, I talk to AIPAC all the time. What are you going to do about it?
Yeah, they throw it in our faces now.
May I add one thing? When I was
course.
still at the CIA, and so this is also dated. I left the CIA 21 years ago. But there was a political debate taking place in the United States at the time within the Muslim community. And it was between more religious Muslims and more secular Muslims. And it was about whether or not it was Islamic to participate in Western elections. There was this debate. And I think that the way things ended up shaking out was that most American Muslims believe that it is appropriate to participate in American politics. We need more of that. We need Muslims are successful as an ethnic group, financially successful. Just like the Greeks became successful when they first emigrated to this country 120 years ago. We need more Muslims to run for more political offices, to donate more money to more campaigns. That's the only way we're going to affect change, is to affect that change on the floor of the House and the Senate.
Yes, that's why Adam Hamawi's win was huge. It gave us hope. Yes,
and take a close look at this Michigan Senate race too, with Abdul Sayed. His name is Abdul Sayed.
Yes,
this guy's really somebody special.
He is, absolutely, and we are cheering for him. I do feel like he will also take it. I mean, we saw with Massey. Everybody thought Massey was going to win. Nobody even knew this other guy. So Glenn, I don't know what his name is. I mean, nobody heard of him. He rejected 8 debates, and somehow, he won. I mean, but we gotta, keep on going and keep on pushing. And I agree with that statement. We need more people of our Muslim brothers and sisters to rise up and push through into government. Thank you, Musa, for that great question. Go ahead, DJK.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to speak with you, John.
Thank you.
So I watch majority of the podcasts that you visit and so on and so forth. And I've heard you actually state that when it comes to Hamas, Israel can't defeat Hamas. They can't disarm them, and they don't have the capability, I believe it is, to demilitarize them. But at the same time, I've also heard you say that pretty much the best option would be, or you are in favor of Hamas being demilitarized. Can you confirm that you have made that statement, just so I can continue with the question, if you don't mind?
Oh, sure. Yeah, what I was referring to when I said that was this idea that was briefly floated where the Saudi government would administer Gaza. Hamas would have to demilitarize and would be replaced by Jordanian, Saudi, Egyptian, Pakistani troops. It was an idea that lasted in the press for about 3 or 4 days and then just kind of went away.
So yeah, and the reason I ask this is because we know there is no diplomatic means with Israel, right?
Yes.
Basically, what's taken by force has to be returned by force. They only understand force and unfortunately violence. Palestinians have tried peaceful resistance and diplomacy for years and years and years and decades. But the reality of the matter is the world only looks at what's happening in Gaza because of the actual armed resistance.
Yes.
And in my
Yes.
opinion, the only way to liberate Palestine is by armed resistance. So I just wanted to clarify that.
At the end of the day, I think that's right. Only because of the situation that we find ourselves in. The Israelis just simply will not stop. And so, I was on the Pierce Morgan show recently. I was on the pro-Palestine side with Scott Horton, and the pro-Israel side was General Danny Ayalon and that awful what's his name, Professor Dershowitz, Alan Dershowitz, and when Dershowitz is on the show, he interrupts constantly. And, it's just the way I was raised that interrupting is rude. And so when somebody interrupts me, I just stop speaking. So near the end of the show, Pierce said, "John, you've hardly said anything. What's your position on Hamas? Do you believe Hamas is a terrorist group?" And I said, "Well, I didn't. But if the point is to attack civilians for the purpose of instilling terror in a civilian population for a political purpose, that is actually the internationally recognized definition of terrorism." And he said, "So you believe October 7th was a terrorist attack?" And I said, if the purpose was to attack civilians, yes, that would also meet the definition of terrorism. And then he said, "Then I don't understand why you're anti-Israel." And I said, "Pierce, you cannot have as a policy to just kill everybody. Women, children, the elderly. You bulldoze the hospitals and the apartment blocks and the water treatment plants and the electrical grid, and you refuse to allow food in. That's literally the definition of genocide. Genocide cannot be the policy." And he later told me that it was just those few sentences that changed his mind on Israel
Wow.
Palestine.
And
Pierce
even when we
Morgan's
see,
mind.
oh, sorry, Taz. Just
Oh,
real quick. So even as we see now, yesterday I believe it was Israel, the U.S., and Lebanon were actually engaged in some ceasefire negotiations. I'm not sure if you've heard about that.
Yeah.
It calls for Hezbollah to move north of the Litani River. But in these negotiations, there's no mention of the IDF actually withdrawing from southern
Exactly.
Lebanon. So I'm really that confirms to what we're saying, right? Is that Israel continues to want to TIs, whether it's Lebanon, Palestine, whatever the case may be. They want to occupy land. It's really about their expansionist project. It
Yes.
has nothing to do with a buffer zone or any of this, or
No.
protecting themselves or defending themselves. So that just
No.
kind of touches to the point that you cannot really have diplomacy with Israel. Because
yeah.
they want what they want, and that's pretty much it. But I'll land it there. Thank you, Taz.
I
Thank you.
think, DJK, I think that's exactly right. I think that it's not possible to engage in negotiations with the Israelis over Lebanon because the Israelis just want to take what they want to take, and they're not going to withdraw. They're not going to stop bombing. They're not going to stop pushing Hezbollah as far away from the border as they can. This is going to be a war without any kind of an end. So I don't think that we should expect to see any meaningful solution come out of negotiations. The Israelis don't negotiate in good
They
faith.
don't negotiate. Yep, exactly. Thank you so much, DJK. Yeah, unfortunately, I mean, we're seeing, they even say it themselves, no one will stop us, and Washington themselves will not stop us. So they threw it in the face like, hey, we're going to do what we want, and you're going to do what we want as well. And that's the situation that we find ourselves in. Go ahead, Resistance. Thank you, DJK.
Well, first of all, John, I'd like to thank you for coming to my live.
Thank
I
you.
know it's not easy. Yeah, you're most welcome.
Oh,
Um,
thank you, Resistance.
Salam, everyone. Host, panel, John, thank you. Hello, chat. Question for you, John. Are there certain strategies that when you sit down by yourself and you reflect on it, are there certain you feel the Mossad that
Oh, you're
we don't
cutting off.
necessarily know about? Like earlier, you said, "Let me." Is this a little better? Is this better?
I think so.
Yeah, go
Can you hear me
ahead.
now? It's better. Are there certain things when you sit down and reflect on the Mossad that you believe, like, that they've infiltrated that we don't really know about? Like earlier, you said that APAC has now come down to the point where they're even on the like influencing small elections and school boards.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Is the Mossad also, like, do you put the Mossad in that same category, that they've infiltrated every part of our government?
I hate to say, but it appears that way. And, you know, it's such a small country, Israel. So how do they do something like that? They do it just by hiring others to do it for them. A lot of the young people on Capitol Hill, for example, who are working for Mossad are interns or contractors. I had a member of Congress tell me just a couple of weeks ago at a dinner that she has this policy, this open door policy. Anybody can come in and talk, you know, to anybody in that outer office there where you first walk in out of the hallway. And she said there's a kid who goes there every morning when they open the doors, and he just sits there all day long. And he'll talk to other constituents like he works there as they come into the office. Well, finally, a couple of her people followed him afterwards, and he just went back to Mossad headquarters. I'm sorry. Oh, I take that back. He just went back to AIPAC headquarters. This is what AIPAC does. And we have to assume that everything is integrated. AIPAC's not working independently of the Israeli government, and it's not working independently of Mossad. Everything is integrated. They're not doing this, you know, as one-offs and just, you know, see where it goes from there. They're working together. And so
John, sorry, but can I just ask you something then? In that same light, are they in that same way infiltrated our churches, our media, politicians, and now school boards? Like,
I would have to assume yes. Okay. Sure.
Continue what you were saying, though. Continue.
Yeah, I would have to assume yes. The Israelis believe they've struck gold with American evangelicals, right? Here's how stupid American evangelical Christians are. They believe that they can force the hand of God. So American evangelicals have believed since around the 1840s or 1850s, and this began in England, that Jesus will come back when all of the Jews return to Israel, okay? Today's American evangelicals believe that if we encourage Jews to move to Israel or force Jews to move to Israel, it'll make Jesus come back sooner, more quickly. Like these guys from Kansas and Oklahoma can actually force the hand of God to allow Jesus to come back to earth. That's why it has been largely American evangelical NGOs that have paid for these Russian and Ukrainian Jews to emigrate to Israel because they believe that they can force it. Well, the Israeli government realized that they can really use this doctrine, this evangelical doctrine, for political support for Israel. And so really just over the last 40 or 50 years, it's a relatively new phenomenon. They have cultivated this evangelical support to put themselves in a position where you have to be pro-Israel, because pro-Israel means pro-America. And they've been able to force an equation of the two.
Yeah, they've been able to integrate that. Wow.
Yes.
Thank you for such a great answer, John, and thank you for everything that you do. Truly.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Resistance. All right. Real quick, we'll go to, I think Hot Mess had one more question, and then I'll be able to bring up other people, and then we'll go to Tapley. Go ahead, real quick, Hot Mess.
Thank you so much. I just really quickly, because you're here, with you being prior CIA, as an American citizen, how are we supposed to trust the people, the influencers, the people that are speaking out? How are we able to tell what is an agenda that's being pushed, or because like what you were saying with them being integrated into every facet of our government, and then also the evangelical movement with so much support for Americans, a lot of that I believe is misguided or propaganda. How do we differentiate between the paid actors versus the people actually speaking out against what's happening?
That's really such a difficult question, and it's a good question. I'm actually asked that quite frequently, and there's no easy answer. What I do, actually, I'm gonna open up my computer right now to tell you what I read every morning. I start off. Let's see here. I start off with the Washington Post, the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, the Los Angeles Times, CNN, Associated Press, Politico, and The Hill. And then I go to, well, I read the Greek press. Then I go to the British press. Go to the Times of London, the Telegraph, the Guardian, the London Evening Standard, and the BBC. Then I do Dropsite, Al Jazeera, Al Monitor, Electronic Intifada, and then I do the Jerusalem Post, the Times of Israel, and then I go to the alternative press, Consortium News, Covert Action Magazine, a couple of others. The idea being you have to read everything. Don't allow yourself to go into an echo chamber and just read the outlets that you know you're going to agree with. You always have to see what the other side is saying. Now, I know a lot of these people. I'm on Al Jazeera all the time. I'm on Al Mayadeen all the time. And Electronic Intifada, those guys are friends of mine. So I know I can trust their reporting and their analysis. And so that's really the bottom line. Read everything. Maybe you have to get up an hour earlier. I actually do that. I get up early. I play a little Angry Birds when I wake up. And then I start going through the press before I, even finish a cup of coffee. And then you have to allow yourself to become enough of an expert to be able to read an article and say, I know that's not true. And I know it's not true because of, and then you've got your own analysis. It's hard work, but it's the only way to do it.
Wow, great answer and great question. Thank you so much, Hot Mess, for that. And thank you for that. Somebody was asking for the list again.
Oh, sure.
And John, are you any good at Angry Birds?
I am globally ranked in Angry Birds. I have not missed a day in almost 9 years. I've played every consecutive day for almost 9 years. It's my only vice. I don't drink, I don't smoke, I don't gamble, but I play Angry Birds every single day.
Incredible. I'm going to add you on there today. Thank you. That's awesome.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right. Go ahead, Tapley.
Hey, good morning. Thank you for having me up. I appreciate it.
Good morning.
John, a huge fan. Such a pleasure to meet you.
Thank you.
I'm kind of the Epstein guy in this live space, so I'm just going to ask you an Epstein question or two, if you don't mind.
Sure thing.
So I want to start with, this is just a quick two-parter. Number one, just kind of yes or no, do you believe that any files have actually been destroyed?
I actually don't. Only because it's all in this day and age of technology, it's almost impossible to truly destroy something. There's always going to be copies out there. And at the same time, we've learned historically, going back to, Watergate, really, in the modern era, that the cover-up of the crime is always far worse than the crime itself. And look at it this way. The statute of limitations has expired on just about everything that we know was a crime from the Epstein files. Nobody's going to be prosecuted. The reason why, according to Marjorie Taylor Greene, the reason why Trump will not release the remainder of the files, despite the fact that he signed a law promising that he would, is that he didn't want to embarrass his friends. And I think that's probably true. He didn't want to embarrass his friends. Not that they would be prosecuted for anything. They would be embarrassed that they had sought, the attention of children, let's say. So I don't think that the files were destroyed or will be destroyed, but I don't think the rest of us are going to get satisfaction from watching anybody, go down because of it.
Fair enough. And I for the record, totally agree with you in terms of, the expectation that there should be future prosecution with this stuff. I think of your story. I know that you watched the CIA destroy, the Abu interrogation tapes, right? And there was a direct judicial preservation order in that case.
That's right. That's exactly right.
Yeah, and nobody went to prison for that, right? And I know that whether some of these files have been destroyed, whether there was some kind of a directive to just suppress these files, I just really wanted to get a clearer idea from you of what document suppression at that level tends to look like operationally. Like, who generally makes that call and executes it?
Oh, yeah, that's a great question. I think in this case, it was literally the president himself telling Pam Bondi, over whom he had complete control, and Todd Blanche, who wants desperately to be attorney general rather than just acting attorney general. He just said, don't release it. Don't release it. Look at it this way, too. The vote to release in the House was 419 to 1. The vote in the Senate was 99 to nothing. And Trump signed it. And then as soon as he signed it, he told Pam Bondi, don't release it. Well, you just signed the law promising to release it. But who's going to prosecute the president? You can't, because the Supreme Court ruled a year ago you cannot prosecute a president, even when he's the former president, for crimes committed while acting as president. So he has the country by the balls. There's just nothing we can do about it. I just hope that whoever is the next president actually does release the files, but I wouldn't put money on it.
Enough. Thank you so much. And my final question, then I'm going to drop and give somebody else a chance. So when I look at the most heavily implicated people outside or in the Epstein files, other than Trump himself, I see Ghislaine, I see her father, Robert, I see Leon Black, I see Darren Indyke, I see Richard Kahn, I see Alan Dershowitz, I see basically a lot of people who have very deep intrinsic ties to the state of Israel.
Yes.
Such. I just wanted to ask your take. Do you think that the state of Israel and America are the two most complicit in this system of crime overall? Because we know it's a global conspiracy, but
yeah, I do. And I'll add something important to that list that you just gave, and that is all the evidence, overwhelming evidence, that an Israeli technological team, whether they were IDF or Mossad or Shin Bet, created an apartment for Ehud Barak inside Jeffrey Epstein's home in New York, and then completely wired it for security. That was also
I totally forgot to name him, obviously, and Les Wexner, of course, but
and Les Wexner. And don't forget, we still don't have any idea where Jeffrey Epstein got his money. No idea. Whether it was from Wexner or from the Rothschilds or whatever. This guy never went to college. He was a substitute 7th grade math teacher, and all of a sudden he's a multi-billionaire consorting with kings and presidents and prime ministers. What do we make of that? How did that happen?
Well, I've seen you actually say, like, I think in print, I don't remember, but you've said, Mossad directed Epstein to target Les Wexner, right? And then put him in contact with the Rothschilds.
Yes, I think so.
And I remember when I read that, like, you more or less said the same thing. You found it really implausible that the 7th grade sub teacher with no degree ends up managing Rothschild's family money.
Yeah,
it's insane.
I read something interesting recently. What's the name of the Secretary of Commerce? Lutnick? Lutnick.
Yes, Howard Lutnick.
Howard Lutnick. He has a house, and Howard Lutnick came from, what was it, Cantor Fitzgerald. The guy's a billionaire in his own right. He lived on the same block that Epstein lived on. Townhouses, Manhattan townhouses, worth tens of millions of dollars. But Epstein's house went like all the way back to the next block, and Lutnick's house was half the size. So if Lutnick is a billionaire and is able to afford a townhouse in Manhattan, how is it that Jeffrey Epstein, a man that we have no idea where and how he got his money, it was literally the most expensive single family home in Manhattan? How? I don't understand it.
Yeah, it's insane. But thank you so much, Tapley, for that question. Excellent points.
Thank you,
Thank you
Taz.
again. Thank you, Tapley.
Appreciate you. John, pleasure to meet you. Have a great day,
Pleasure's
everybody.
mine. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we'll just have about, I know we're almost about time. We'll have about 2 more questions. I wanted to end with one very important question before, so we'll go to Kindness. Go ahead, Kindness.
Hey, so, well, Ro Khanna and Thomas Massie are trying to fight this.
Yes.
How do we help them?
Yeah, that's a good question too. I spoke with Thomas Massie at the end of last week. I guess it was Thursday, Friday. And he said he is now exploring the option of running for president. And he's talking about maybe a podcast between now and then. That would be helpful, and it would keep him relevant and out there in the public spotlight. At the same time, and this is going to sound crazy, and nobody's talking about it, it's just John throwing out an idea. The Democratic and Republican parties are both broken, and they're both corrupt.
Yes.
And so isn't it about time for some sort of a national unity party? How wonderful would it be to see Thomas Massie and Ro Khanna running together? Or Thomas Massie and Tucker Carlson? Or Ro Khanna and Tucker Carlson? We need somebody out there who's willing to stand up.
So there's an initiative. Sorry, I've been sick. I got the C-19. There's an initiative coming out of Montana right now. It's ITN. So it's transparency, and what it does is it circumvents Citizens United with state law. It's transparent. They cover Delaware. It mitigates all of that. So essentially, you pass laws in your state about the corporations in your state, and it prohibits PACs from coming in that are created in Delaware or Colorado or New Mexico, where there's lax laws and they don't have to be that transparent. And then you get to see, and you don't vote for anybody that's corrupt. You don't vote for anybody that takes big money, because they won't be able to hide under the anonymous donor through a PAC, because they donate to the PAC donates to the campaign. It's really, really good. It's an initiative. All the states can get in on it. Basically, Hawaii just passed one. It's going to get pushed back from the Supreme Court, but we need to do something. And it's up to the American people to do it. I don't subscribe to a party. My ideology, I don't really have one. It's an amalgamation of a lot. I want healthcare. I want this. I want that. And I think the party lines and the labels in this country is what's destroying it. And I think that the Trump administration was very effective at that. Labeling MAGA, liberal left lunatics, all the propaganda, right?
And everybody's, what's the word they use? Radical. The radical left.
The radical.
Yes, the radical left lunatics. Oh no, the trans people. Oh no, it's fear. They've fear-mongered the entire right.
Yeah.
That, we're going to take their pew-pews. The left's going to take their pew-pews. The trans people are going to get you. There was a prosecution in Texas where they sentenced them for as domestic terrorists for wearing all black. Circumstantial evidence. It's ridiculous. We've got North Carolina right now. There's a bill going in, or trying to go in, where you can use unaliving force to prohibit a woman from getting an AB. Pro-life, right? God, yeah, so super pro-life, right?
Yeah,
this country's in real trouble.
Yep, I agree, Kindness. And that's why we keep saying we need to get our country back, or else we're going to go down. We're going to be next. Thank you so much, Kindness, for that. All right, we're almost, just a few more questions, if that's okay. I know, John, we're just about on time right now. If you don't mind, just about 5 minutes or so.
Sure.
All right, go ahead.
If that's okay. So there was some...
Yeah,
There's
just
some distrust with. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
sorry. Yeah, just because time. I mean, I don't know how much time we have.
I
John,
can
would
ask it in the
you?
comments. It's okay.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you so much, kindness. Sorry, we're just about going over time here. Go ahead, Palestinian engineer.
Hi, John. Nice to meet you.
Hi, it's a pleasure.
So, like a few years back, if anyone talks about APAC and the Israel lobby, they would be called anti-Semitic and
Yes.
cancelled and all of that. But now it's becoming popular, and we have politicians running on anti-APAC and anti-lobbying platforms. And so, my question to you: do you have like any intel or your research? Um, are people going to be soon enough pro-Palestinian armed resistance? I don't mean people. People already are. But are we going to have politicians who are going to be publicly supporting Palestinian armed resistance? And are we going to have platforms where they would be like, yes, we support armed resistance, or
I
you
doubt
don't
it.
see that happening soon?
I doubt it. I don't think there's anybody, at least not on Capitol Hill today, who has the guts. You know, it's not like it was in the 80s when you had a little core of members of Congress that supported armed resistance in Afghanistan against the Russians, for example. I don't think anybody has the guts to come out and say it. No. I'll tell you what, I think there's going to be a half step. When I was on Capitol Hill a couple of weeks ago, for the very first time, I heard people talking about a three-state solution, which has always made perfect sense to me. Israel, the West Bank as an independent Palestine, and Gaza as an independent nation. That makes more sense. You know, you go to the Israeli media, and all you see is the Israeli media and Israeli politicians saying there is no such thing as a two-state solution. The two-state solution's dead. It's one state. It's called Israel with Jerusalem as its capital, and the Arabs can live here if we allow them. Okay, that's not a solution. That's the status quo, and it doesn't work. And I think that maybe what we
Yeah.
do need is a three-state
So,
solution.
no, I mean, I'm gonna have to push back with you on
I know
that,
a
John.
lot of my
As
friends do. I know.
as Palestinians, we know there is. I don't even know. First of all, yes, it's correct. As Elon Pape always says, that two-state solution is dead, and it's just never given a proper burial and a
Yeah.
proper funeral. We must bury it and never speak about it again. And I don't know what a three-state solution is. The only solution is one state and equal rights. I mean, we saw Bernie
Yeah.
Sanders the other
I
day
know.
or saying that he doesn't support equal rights for Palestinians and Israelis or Jews, because then that would mean that Israel would cease to exist. And that's equal rights is the only way to achieve this. A one state liberated Palestine from the river to the sea is the only way. There is no other option. I mean, we're 78 years into this. We ran out of options. Those options
Yeah.
are no longer there. So,
There was
that. Mhm.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. There was a State Department special envoy for the Arab-Israeli peace process who told me one time that there are no new ideas. Every idea has been thought of, and for the most part, the Israelis have killed it. Every idea. There's nothing new out there. We're going to have to negotiate something based on the old ideas.
Yeah, I mean that would be prior to 1948, before Israel existed. So
Yeah.
that's the best idea, is
Yeah.
no existence of Israel. So I mean, that's the only way. And I mean, Israel's going to implode from within, and Israel will cease to exist here. I mean, the only way that they can exist is through America. I mean, we saw Donald Trump saying that the only reason Israel is there is because of me. I mean, we know what Donald Trump likes to say, but we also saw
Yeah.
Biden saying that if there
Sure.
was no Israel, I would create one.
Yes.
So
Yes.
yes, it is a one state solution, and the freedom of Palestine for the Palestinians. We have suffered enough, and it is time that and the world is seeing that for the first time. So we will reach that one way or another, and we will be getting there soon. Really quick, just before we end here, we see a law. I mean, on these platforms, can you hear me?
Yeah, now I can. You cut out for a minute.
Sorry. Yes, we see a lot of, my last question is, we see a lot of, on these platforms, it's a huge push for the propaganda by the the pro-Israeli side. What more can we do as we see that, Israel claims that the social media is the eighth front war. This is the information war. And, at one point they said that we lost the information war, right? But they're trying so hard to continue to push on these platforms. We're seeing it in different, different lives like this, etc. What can we do collectively as Americans to really push and continue to expose Israel against this monster? You said that they're in our schools. I mean, even just online, I mean, through the Western media, what more can we do collectively to spread the truth prior to the midterms and, to make an effective difference in the minds? Because many people still are brainwashed, their brains are occupied. They still they don't know much. So what more do you recommend for us to do?
Well, it's not a sexy response, but my response would be that we have to work within the system that we've given ourselves. And that means we have to take advantage of our constitutional rights to petition our elected leaders, to march in the streets, to speak and to write and to demonstrate and to force a change in American public opinion. We've got to ride our elected officials. They work for us and they have to do what we say. We have to get them to stop accepting AIPAC money. We have to get them to force them, if we have to start respecting human rights and civil liberties. And if they don't do what we want, we have to throw them out. So we should all be writing and demonstrating and marching and talking to friends and voting. Never miss an election. And make sure that everybody that you go to vote for or vote against, you know exactly what their position is on these issues.
Thank you, John. And just one more question from my co-host, if that's okay. We'll
Sure.
really quick. Go ahead, Linda.
Thank you, Tess. Thank you, John. How should the public interpret the detention of the 5 Israelis on 9/11 in light of Mossad's known intelligence activities in the U.S.? And what does this incident suggest about the boundaries of CIA-Mossad cooperation during major security events?
Yeah, it's funny. I was just talking about this last night with friends of mine over dinner. It was a clear indication that the Israelis were spying on us. And it was a clear indication that that the Israelis knew that there was an attack that was imminent. They knew it. I've maintained from the very beginning that while 9/11 was committed by Al-Qaeda, that the Israelis knew it was coming. They likely had assets inside Al-Qaeda, and they did nothing to stop it or to inform us that the attack was going to be in the United States. And it just proves my point that we cannot and should not be cooperating with the Israelis. The Israelis have only Israeli interests at heart, not American interests.
Yes, 100%. That is why we say Israel is the greatest threat to the world and especially to America. Like you guys heard here, it goes even deeper into our schools, into the board, and we need to make a difference. But thank you so much, John. I know we went over time, and I really appreciate it. This was great conversation.
My pleasure.
Such an honor to have you with us here, and I hope you join us again. And we hope to absolutely. Thank you again, John. Thanks for having me.